Hi, I'm Ryan Richardson with the Elite Group at HomeSmart. We made it through another year. The 2018 numbers are in, and this is your year-end report.
Is the United States heading for another absolutely devastating housing crash? It has been 10 years since the last one, and so many of the exact same signs that immediately preceded the last one are starting to appear once again.
You sit on a throne of lies.
In this video, I'm going to tell you why this bubble is popping and why we are going to see massive, huge price drops in 2019.
Check it out. The market is going to crash, and when it does,
this one is the greatest real estate bubble we've seen in history. It's the most
doom, doom, doom. The world's coming to an end. It's collapsing. No, for real, it really is. It's actually what real estate does every 20 years.
I said this last year. All these reports of our impending market crash were wrong. I'm confused. Are these people just doing this now for the views? Is this something that we're going to be doing every year? I suppose when things have been going well for a little while, the slightest adjustment in the market means pending signs of doom. That, or they just don't have anything else to talk about to get people to watch. Did the Fed increase their rates this year after warning us that they would for the last 3 to 4 years? Yes, we're seeing high 4s, low 5s is typically what I'm seeing on an average daily basis. Does that cause buyers to be a little more hesitant when pulling the trigger on a new home loan? Yes, absolutely. Does that mean that the real estate market is collapsing? Should you sell? Should you wait to buy until values have kind of come down a little bit? Let's dive into the statistics and find out. How are we looking in sales? Right now, 2018 is actually sitting at the highest it's been since the beginning of 2013, which shows people are buying homes. They are confident in obtaining home ownership. And check this out, the highest number of sales in Scottsdale since 2006 we saw this year. So then we take that number of sales and compare it to our inventory to get a good idea of how many of these homes are actually selling. This is called inventory month supply. It's the amount of months it would take based on the number of sales to completely deplete the current inventory to zero. This is an important statistic, but because it takes that supply and demand aspect that I always go on and on about. Low inventory month supply is actually a good thing. It shows that it's a healthy market, typically rise in value in some way. Really high inventory month supply, it can be seen as a negative. Shows there are way too many homes on the market, not enough people are buying them because there's simply not enough demand, causing the reduction in the listing price to sell and ultimately a reduction in value. Phoenix as a whole is at 2.8 months supply. To give a good number to compare to, when we started seeing values decrease that very first year in 2007, we were at 18.6 months. Peoria is 3.2 months supply versus 22.3 in 2007. Scottsdale is at 5 months supply versus 21.4 back in 2007. Now before you say that number is actually a little bit high, Scottsdale's month supply is always around 4 to 5 months supply. And that's simply because there are less buyers that can afford in their price point, so there's typically more homes in the market that take a little longer to sell as they're waiting for that right buyer. Surprise is sitting at 2.6 months supply versus 19.2 in 2007. And finally Glendale is at 2.8. So every one of these shows me our supply and demand are in line with that same seller's market that we've actually been seeing for the past 6 or 7 years. It's also important to note that these numbers are not too low. That causes too low of an inventory and too many people to compete for these houses, thus drastic increases. Those are when you start seeing signs of bubbles, because then we have value increases in the teens per year that simply can't sustain for a consistent amount of time. Now, if you remember, and I quote, I was estimating a 5 to 9% increase in value for this year of 2018 in the last year's update that we did for 2017. Let's see where we landed. Peoria is actually sitting at an average price per square foot of $148.68, which is a 5.8% increase in value from the beginning of the year. And then at the beginning of the year, Peoria actually had an average value for their homes of a little over $306,000. That means you made a little over $17,000 just in equity in your home. Glendale is slightly cheaper at $141 a square foot, which was actually an increase of 7.4%. So Glendale had an average home value of $254,000, meaning you made $18,800 over the year. Then Surprise also went up 7.4% to a price per square foot of $130 and providing $18,403 to its owners. Scottsdale actually saw a better year than most years. Back in 2016, they were flirting around 1 to 2% increase in value. Last year was 4%, and this year they ended up at 5.9% at $256 price per square foot. So you think, well, percentage is lower than most of our other cities. Unfortunately, remember in that logic, they have an average price per square foot of $687,000, meaning they made over $40,000 this year. And then our top dog in the valley in terms of percentage is a 7.8% increase in value in Phoenix, which is at $168 price per square foot, meaning your average valued house made a little over $23,000 just being a home, sitting there building equity in this year. Lastly, as you know, I like to end things off with the market index. This thing brings all the statistics together and predict what type of market we are in. That middle line is a balanced market, above is a seller's market, and below is a buyer's market. As you can see, we are still well into the seller's market, low inventory side of the spectrum. And while I do see that slowing ever so slightly and pulling a little more towards a balanced market, that's absolutely not a bad thing. Balance can be good. It's still a steady increase in value and keeps prices attainable to a buyer. So no, you do not need to start hitting the panic button or the abort button like so many of these articles are saying. We are just fine here in Phoenix, and I can say with the utmost certainty, we probably won't see quite as fast of an appreciation this year simply because of the interest rate increases by the Fed, but values will absolutely continue to rise into the 3 to 5% at least this year. If you would like specific info on your city or even your zip code, let me know anytime. I love watching these numbers and seeing where we are as a market. Thank you again for being the most important part of my business. I'll be out there hanging the sold signs. Have a wonderful 2019.